Welcome to the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel. Today I'm joined by Holly Shan to have a look at how Fantasy Football Hub's AI team is doing. Guys, if you haven't seen this series before, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Fantasy Football Hub is running a team purely based on what the AI, its own AI, is suggesting it does. We can't come on here every week and say, sign up to Fantasy Football Hub and check out what the AI is recommending for your team if we don't just back it ourselves. So that's what we're doing this season. It's been a bit of a ropey start, Holly, but it's worth reminding the viewers that last year this team did come in the top 70k, and the team is looking strong for future game weeks. So yeah, interested to see what it's suggesting for itself this week.
Yeah, so we managed to get our first green arrow for a while last week. So that certainly feels good to be on the ascendancy. Obviously, we've got a lot of work to do. It's only the second green arrow of the season, but the AI is certainly not going to panic like us humans may do if we're having a poor start. And, there's plenty of weeks to make up ground. We saw some really big swings last week, actually, with things like different captaincy and different players. So it just goes to show that you can kind of play it quite robotically and still climb.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look at the team. It looks strong. Looks strong. A good gaming rating, 91%. Team rating, 95%, as you'd expect. Now, I want to immediately jump to something which I think is really interesting, because the guests that I've had on the channel this week who have had both Rodgers and Semenyo in their team have pretty much all said to me that they're going to be starting Rodgers over Semenyo. But going by the predicted points here, Semenyo is predicted to score slightly higher than Rodgers, and therefore, just clicking optimize on the team, which I've done down here, Rodgers is the one that right now, as it stands, as we're recording this, is being benched for Semenyo. And we have to do that, right? If the tool thinks that Semenyo is going to get more points, then we've got to play him.
Yeah, we've got to trust in the AI. It's quite interesting when you actually, break this down. Like, Semenyo has got 4 goal involvements so far this season. And I think, a home game is certainly an advantage. You look at Rodgers, Fulham away is not an easy fixture. If you look at the amount of big chances Fulham have conceded on their goal, it's actually the fewest of any side in the Premier League this season. So the AI will be taking into the account the home advantage. And, Fulham defence has looked pretty good so far. So yeah, we're just going to trust in it and see what happens. I know if I was setting up my own team, I'd probably lean towards playing Rodgers over Semenyo myself. But, Semenyo, Bournemouth haven't got that midweek football to contend with either, have they? Which could play into their hands, whereas Aston Villa have got a pretty busy Champions League schedule as well.
I mean, this is one of those like marginal calls anyway, so I don't think you can take too much from the outcome, because whatever happens, the AI is saying it's very close between these two players. However, it's one that, yeah, as you said, and I agree with you, I would definitely play Rodgers here. So the fact that the predicted points are close is interesting anyway. And then, yeah, it's one of those where I'm going to be very interested coming back to next episode next week to see the outcome of this and see just how close it was in the end, and see whether the AI made a good decision or not. Because, yeah, it's not a human decision. I think this is that sort of decision where you say, okay, a human probably wouldn't make this, but that is why it's interesting, and that is why we're doing this series. Let's talk about the rest of the team. It looks pretty strong, really. The interesting thing is that Robertson is in there. He's a player that obviously the AI has loved throughout the whole of pre-season. A little bit of a tougher run for Liverpool coming up, perhaps, defensively. Arsenal double up still looking strong. Saka with that flag is still in the team. That's important to know. And obviously, if that flag does get removed by deadline, then his predicted points will go up. But yeah, across the team, that no real weaknesses to sort of talk about. Maybe Eze is one that's slightly out of form now, but his predicted points are still really good.
Yeah, I don't think Eze's really been in form this season. He got that one goal, didn't he, in game week 3, blanked in the 4 subsequent fixtures. So he's a player that not any really FPL managers are talking about, but the AI still loves him and is still ranking him pretty highly compared with midfield counterparts that are more expensive. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to see how that one plays out over the next few weeks, because he's not even close to being transferred out this week. I guess Robertson's the other one, isn't it? He was benched, wasn't he, for the last game and then came on.
Oh yeah.
The we could see some disruption with the international break. You never know what players are going to get benched. I do love the fact that Saka is still predicted 5.6 points away at Bournemouth, even though he's flagged. And I'm hearing good news, so I'm hopeful that he will start. But he looks like a great long-term hold.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's now jump into the AI recommended transfers for the AI team. Last week we rolled Holly, and we decided not to go early on that move, which it suggested, which was Saliba to Gvardiol. Let's see what it's saying this week. Okay, so here we are. The recommendation on screen. Wow, it's one that it was kind of flittering between last week, but now it is saying it's time to go. It is Saliba to Gvardiol.
Yeah, I think we've reached this point now, haven't we, where, Vardiol has got the better fixtures. The tipping point, it was on the edge last week, and we're definitely there now. The thing I like about Vardiol is the fact that we are seeing in some weeks, Pep is playing Lewis in the 8 and Walker at left back, and that helps Vardiol in terms of being able to, push up the pitch and advance. And I think that's going to help him. We've already seen him, start to get attacker returns in that more advanced position this season, where he really excelled at the end of last season. Arsenal defence a bit of a question mark at the moment for a lot of us, because the fixtures do not look great. And they seem to be having a lot of issues, particularly in, the fullback role. A lot of changes in personnel and quite a few injuries. And I think that's just destabilised this defence that have been very good in FPL for the last couple of years over the last few games, because we was looking at those, Leicester and Southampton at home fixtures as being shoo-ins for clean sheets. It didn't happen. I still think, Arsenal will come up with a clean sheet in a fixture, even when it maybe doesn't look like they're going to. But I think just having Gabriel is fine. And City's fixtures are great. So it'd be great to have another City player in the side, because obviously everyone owns Haaland at this point, and even captaining him is pretty template.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the difference in predicted points between Saliba and Gvardiol. It's pretty unanimous that Gvardiol is the better pick going forward. And yeah, we knew this last week as well, that this run was about to occur, and there was going to be a big difference between these two. We weren't sure about doing it last week rather than this week, because yeah, as you said, last week looked like a great fixture. Turns out maybe it was better doing it last week anyway, and now you wouldn't have to do it this week, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click make transfer here, and that is going to that's going to make the transfer. Shocking, I know, but there we go. That is the team on screen as it stands. That is what we're going to be going into next game week with. Yeah, a word on Haaland, a quick one. He's clearly the best option here. What if Saka was fully fit and confirmed to be fully fit? What would his predicted points roughly be, do you reckon? Would it be close to Haaland or not really?
I think Haaland and Salah are kind of a tier above Saka. They have been consistently in terms of the predicted points. Interestingly, if you own Salah, he is predicted to outscore Haaland this week, 8.3 points for Salah against Chelsea at home, which surprises me a little bit, because again, I think it's that home advantage, because Wolves, bottom of the league, most goals conceded, most big chances on goal conceded, just feels like a no-brainer to go Haaland.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so that is it for the team. This transfer isn't locked in yet. We'll have to wait and see if anything else happens, and then Holly will make that transfer later on Friday, as close to the deadline as possible, and then that team reveal will be posted on the website. But yeah, if you want to make sure to not miss out what the AI team does, follow its journey, have a look at the AI teams here as well, the best free hit for this week, the best wildcard. Perhaps some of you are on a Game Week 8 wildcard or thinking about it over the next few weeks, then that is the place to do that. Now let's have a look at some general players over the next 5 game weeks and see who is doing well according to the predicted points across every position. Okay, let's start off with the goalkeepers. What you can see on screen is, according to Hub's predictor, these are the top 10 goalkeepers who are predicted to score the most points across the next 5 game weeks, Holly. Edison and Raya up top. Interesting stuff. Gets a little bit more, I guess a little bit more sort of, well, if you're on someone like a Flecken right now who hasn't been doing that well, really, does it give encouragement to people like me? Like you, I think you have Flecken as well in your team, that he's still a good long-term pick?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got plenty of routes to points. Obviously, he's got the fixtures there, so there's hope that he will keep a clean sheet eventually. But he's top for saves, so that's obviously another great route to points. And Brentford are conceding a lot of chances on their goal. However, a lot of those chances are quite low quality chances.
Yeah.
So that's certainly helping him. So yeah, I still feel like if you're shopping in that 4.5 million bracket, then Flecken's the one to go for. I think there'll be a few managers maybe needing to make a goalkeeper transfer this week because we've got Alisson's hamstring injury. We've also got Matt Sells at Nottingham Forest, who's yellow flagged, picked up an issue in the break. So yeah, there's potential there. But Pickford as well, he's popped up out of nowhere on the predictions. And I think it just goes to show an improvement in Everton's defending in recent weeks, which shouldn't come as a surprise because at the start of the season when they were dreadful, they did have some key personnel missing and they're now kind of getting back towards their optimal back line. Obviously, Pickford had a great performance in game week 7. He got that 15-pointer, didn't he, with the penalty save, the clean sheet, 3 bonus. 4.8 million, he's had a couple of price drops. So he's now kind of coming into that budget category.
Yeah.
And you look at Everton's fixtures, we know that Sean Dyche teams, what they do, particularly as the season, is properly established, being quite defensive. So yeah, he's one worth considering.
It's just a shame. I mean, do you know much about Branthwaite? Because when he was coming back, I was thinking, okay, wow. I mean, like, I don't like making goalkeeper transfers, but yeah, as you said, looking across those next sort of up to game week 14 for Everton, there are definitely clean sheets there. And I was more confident of that with Branthwaite coming back into the team. But then he picked up another injury. I think if he was confirmed fit, I'd be massively, for the Pickford move. I'm just not sure it's worth a goalkeeper transfer when I'm not sure about his form. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we know what Dyche teams do. Although it does really confuse me sometimes how, like, in periods of a season, they'll just go from being a terrible defense to then suddenly like locking back in and being very, very solid again. I don't really know what's going on there or whether they try and be a bit more expansive and then sort of go back on it. But yeah, any news on Branthwaite?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen anything yet, but obviously he is the key man in that defence. And like looking on the FPL side at the minute, you've got Mikalenko, Branthwaite, Coleman, obviously, and Patterson all
Yeah.
flagged. So it's still a case of trying to get, that optimal back line out. So hopefully that kind of resolves itself when we get Sean Dyche's press conference on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the defenders then. That the hub is suggesting for itself that it transfers in is at the top, Guardiola.
Yeah, and I think the entire Man City back line are in there, which is a
Oh
reflection
wow.
of their good fixtures. Rico Lewis, I think we've got that security of minutes now because as I mentioned before, it tends to be that either against easier opposition, he plays as the right back and inverts. Against the tougher opposition, Walker will play and then Lewis will be, more of a traditional 8. So I think now that we've got that security of minutes with Lewis, that sees him push up. And I think at the moment, he's probably still worth the saving over Vardiol, but it just goes to show that we need to be looking at adding an extra City player to our ranks. Haaland, captain every week with this run of fixtures, probably isn't enough. And the defence will give us that bit of consistency and security, you'd hope. Like you look further down the list and you got to go as far as Aït-Nouri for another defender around that price tag that could potentially bring in points. But Wolves have got fixtures, but their defensive form is terrible. The only saving grace with Aït-Nouri is that he's got his goal threat as well. But also a big takeaway is that Gabriel down to 3rd place and the only Arsenal defender on this list,
Yeah.
which is, a concern. I guess it's fixtures and player availability, a lack of uncertainty on who's going to play in those fullback roles.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm happy to see Lewis as high as he is on this list. One of the reasons I got him was because if he was to get a consistent run of games and look like more of a lock, you look at the price of the other City defenders, he's definitely underpriced still. And I think, even with a few price jumps, he's still a very, very cheap way into a great defense. And he's playing further up the pitch. And yeah, obviously the discussion there was about his minutes, but now that it looks more solid, I'm all for that and happy that's being shown in the predicted points. Eight Nuri is a really interesting one. Obviously, you're not gonna bring him in this week and play him. Probably not anyway. City at home, then Brighton away. But after that, it's a great run, and that's probably why he's doing as well as he's doing in these predicted points. But then just looking at the overall points of Wolves defenders, he has 22 points, and the next highest is 6,
Yeah.
which is, I know, like you've said it, they're a terrible defense, but 2 goals in the last 2 game weeks. Maybe he doesn't need to play for a good defense to get loads of points.
Yeah, and once those fixtures do come round after this week, like there is potential there. There's certainly routes to points for him. Like he can be so advanced at times. And, you know, Wolves have to start playing better.
Yeah.
We've seen this from them the last few seasons where they've had a terrible start and have been languishing in the table, and then suddenly, they're safe and you've not really noticed it happen. Um, Obviously having so many key personnel back, like their attack's starting to gel now, and I think that's just gonna, improve things in all areas of the pitch for them once these fixtures come.
Wolves is like I think that's the definition of sort of looking at the fixtures and seeing, judging from that how important they are for any team and individual FPL players as well. Like we knew that the first 6 games of the season were going to be extremely hard. The last game in particular is more of a worry because Brentford away is not an extremely tough fixture, and you shouldn't be conceding 5 goals in that game. I mean that's ridiculous, and also the expected goal against numbers were over 4, so it's not that wasn't unlucky. They just had a really really poor game defensively. That is more of a concern, but after these next 2, yeah, I'm going to be very very interested to see if their form does turn around just purely based on the fixtures, which as you said are so good. And Eight Nuri, yeah, if he keeps playing in or getting in the attacking positions that he's getting in, which are just not fullback positions even, then he's definitely going to be high on my watch list. Okay, let's move on to talking about midfielders. Salah's at the top here. I mean, it's not like crazy high. We're going to look at forwards obviously in a second where Haaland is just miles ahead. Salah, again, he's not crazy high. Interestingly, Palmer's above Saka now as well for people potentially looking between those two. Let's just talk about the 3 sort of premiums here. Not too much to separate them.
No, and I think the thing you have to bear in mind with Saka is that he is penalised in the predictions by that yellow flag, and if that wasn't in place, then he'd be above Palmer. I think this fixture schedule is kind of mixed for both teams. I'd say it's quite comparable in terms of, there's a few easier games in there, but the schedule doesn't look great. But they are players that should be considered fixture proof. I think you can say the same for Liverpool's fixtures as well. I think what's crucial is there's not that much to split the 3 of them other than on price, and it's very difficult to have Salah and a Palmer or Salah and a Saka when assuming that you've got Haaland, whereas you can quite easily afford Haaland, Palmer and Saka if you ignore Salah. And while Liverpool have been very consistent defensively, I think offensively it's a little bit different in terms of interpreting where the minutes are going. And I think that's only going to become more prevalent over the next few weeks when, the demands are creeping up in terms of Champions League as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And I also think, yeah, as you're saying, maybe it's not worth then. I know Palmer's had a great couple of especially the game week before the last game week, but everyone's sort of looking at Palmer. This is perhaps suggesting it's not worth losing a Saka to get to a Palmer. Maybe from game week 12, that might be more of a potential route to Palmer's high ceiling. But yeah, I'm not sure about Chelsea's upcoming fixtures. Looking down the list, I want to talk about Tottenham really. Maddison's in here, but given Tottenham's great run over the next 4, I might expect to see more Spurs players in here. For example, there's no Johnson, for example. Someone like a Bruno is still above him, Bowen above him, Gordon too. Just should we be a little bit, maybe just a little bit sort of concerned to not see as many Tottenham players across this entire list as one might expect, given their fixtures are so good? I'm thinking as well, Porro wasn't in the top defenders.
Yeah, I guess Porro is a bit more of an interesting question. I think I think the AI all tends to predict Romero higher than Porro at the moment, and I think that's just because Romero's had more big chances. Romero is very, very close to the top 10,
Okay.
by the way, for the defenders. I think I can see why the AI is predicting Maddison highest of the Spurs midfielders because he has the most points of all Spurs players so far this season, which has kind of gone under the radar. And you
Yeah.
look at the kind of personnel that are pushing these players down. It's Kulusevski is the second ranked Spurs midfielder, 24.5 points. So he's not far away. Johnson in third on 24 points. But you look at the likes of Bruno Fernandes, he's got penalties. Gordon has got penalties at the moment. And Burmo penalties as
Yeah.
a share of penalties. That's quite significant in the AI predictions. But yeah, like you say, like I'm very interested in Spurs at the moment, trying to get a Spurs attacker in. That's the key omission from the AI team at the moment. You look at that as a spot, and I think, if you asked any FPL manager or content creator, certainly what move they'd make, it would be Eze out for Johnson, I'd imagine, this week if it was their team. So yeah, it's interesting. I think the trouble is with Johnson is minutes. I
Yeah.
think that definitely dents his appeal from the AI because, you could easily get a 60 in there. We've seen a 45-minute from him this season. I don't know if we've seen any 90s.
Well, he just got a 90 in the last week, but that is well, he got one in game week 2 as well. But I think the one in game week 7 was surprising. I got him last week, and I'm thinking maybe I'm being a little bit more conservative on him because I already have him, rather than like maybe it's my own bias, which I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably a me thing, but yeah, I was surprised to see him play 90. He's played about 70 the previous 3 game weeks. And I'm not 100% sure with him in particular whether these upcoming fixtures suit him. Don't know what you think, but yeah, it's not a shock to me to not see him in this top 10 is what I'm trying to get at, I think.
Yeah, and we know Son's got to come back in at some point as well,
Yeah.
and that will change the whole dynamic. What has been great is to see that Postecoglou's managed to find a way to play Maddison, Kulusevski, and Johnson in the same team. And Spurs are scoring goals, and you look like 3 home games in the next 4, and the caliber of the opponents, like it is going to be a key window for them.
Yeah, 100%. And also, because they're not doing well defensively at all, you might think they're going to have to keep outscoring their opponents. They're just a really interesting team at the moment. I mean, they always are, Tottenham. You're just not entirely sure what's going on ever. Just a lack of consistency is always just slightly concerning for their FPL options. But with that being said, let's move on to the forwards. Solanke doing pretty well there in 4th. We don't even need to mention Haaland. Again, I think like the difference between the important thing with Haaland is not comparing him to other forwards. It's comparing him to the other premiums, and he's still considerably ahead of Salah, Palmer, and Saka. But yeah, the forwards, Solanke doing pretty well, but Wood is there in 2nd, which gives me a lot of confidence because he's in my team. I've benched some of his points recently, but it's nice to see him there anyway.
Yeah, and he's a player that's hit double digits for goals in 5 of the last 7 seasons, I believe. And now that he's potentially got penalties consistently as well, that really helps him. And the fixtures are pretty good as well. I think Forest have got 3 home games in their next 4. It was encouraging to see the experiment where manager started Wood and Awoniyi both in one game, failed. And I think we now know that Chris Wood's minutes are going to be very consistent, and they've increased as well over the first phase of the season. So yeah, like I'm a Chris Wood owner as well, and I'm pretty happy with him at the moment. Like for his price tag, like if he can get a goal every other game at 6 million, like what more would you want from a forward at that price point? I guess the thing that he lacks is being explosive, but like you're never going to captain him, so does it matter? Probably
not really. Yeah, if he can just tick along, that's completely fine. And he's had a good start to the season. Yeah, it's just the fact that he's above Havertz, Watkins, Isak, Jackson. I know the fixtures for Chelsea aren't great, but the difference really between him and Calvert-Lewin, which was a decision for a lot of people on wildcard, 6 points over 5 game weeks, that is a lot. So that is encouraging. It suggests that perhaps we made the right decision, although who knows? We'll have to wait and see. And then just one that stands out for me is Cunha, 6.5. No one's looking at him. I mean, to be fair, that's not true. I have seen some people mentioning him. I've seen him on a few wildcard drafts, but yeah, it's those fixtures again, just looking super strong for Wolves, and yeah, surely it's going to turn for them. I know we've spoken about this already, but is he one that you potentially are looking at in a couple of game weeks time?
I think it's going to take a lot to oust Chris Wood from
Yeah,
that spot. It'll be interesting to see how the AI approaches this as well in terms of that spot in the team. I really do like Kuna though, because we know his pedigree in the game. It's just if he can stay fit is probably the biggest concern for me right now. But yeah, once we've got this City game out of the way, it does feel like it's the time to buy. And I think at the moment Wolves are going to have to outscore their opponents to get points.
yeah.
Judging by, their poor defensive performances and the confidence. But yeah, the goals are starting to come already. So, I'm not sure how confident I am of this Vardiol clean sheet that we're going to be invested in for game week 8.
Well, I mean, as it stands, he's probably more likely to get an attacking return than a clean sheet in that game, which would be great. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the AI does do. Just looking at the difference between Watkins and Cunha's points, really not that much at all, given the price difference of 2.6. Obviously, the AI has Watkins in the team right now, but yeah, maybe not that encouraging for Watkins owners going forward. But yeah, there we go. I think that's everything covered, Holly. Unless we've missed a key talking point there, I think we've got everything.
Yep, I think that's very well covered.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much, Holly, as always, for running us through those players. Guys, if you would like to see every player in the game's predicted points over the next 5 game weeks and so much more, the link to sign up to Fantasy Football Hub is down below. Holly, good luck next game week for your team personally into the top 1 million. Sneakily having a pretty good start to the season there, I've got to say. Looking good.
Yeah, Cole Palmer game week 6 wild card was the turning point.
There we go. Great player. Great player. Might do it again this week, I hope. As a non-owner but a Chelsea fan that he does. Good luck next game week, guys, and we will catch you on the next one.